CEO of SAP, on the panel. Welcome, Christian Klein.
Thank you.
All right. So we had a brief conversation beforehand, Christian Klein and me, and I was telling him we're going to discuss digital sovereignty, which obviously is the topic of the conference. But I said, or I was asking you, okay, we're going to do real talk, and you promised no platitudes. So let's dive into it. Is it something that is more of a platitude, or something that we just need to discuss, or do we actually make progress on that end?
Absolutely. I mean, digital sovereignty, has an increased importance. I mean, when you see the geopolitical tensions in the world, I have many CEOs who ask me, Christian, what happens in China when export controls are coming? I have large operations in China. So the topic matters. It's just important that we are not getting too theoretical and that we stay pragmatical. Because you will never see a technology stack which is completely built in Europe or in China or in the US. And that's why it's very important to have a pragmatic definition of what sovereignty really means and how can I avoid a lock-in into a certain technology, which I maybe regret if the world is turning upside down.
I was just at one of these luncheons here, and somebody tried the definition to say sovereignty is when we're able to leave the table because we're independent enough to do that. Is that something you would agree upon?
Yeah, I mean, look, also SAP, we are running on hyperscalers, on US hyperscalers, we are running on Alibaba, we are using chips from NVIDIA, and obviously I cannot create a login of SAP into Microsoft. Yeah, as much maybe Satya would love to have that. I need to also be flexible, I need to be agnostic, and the same is true for the customers. I mean, when I'm talking to governments here in Munich, they're always telling me, but Christian, when I now make a decision to go into the cloud and AI with SAP, how easy it is to switch the one or the other component, and I guess that is the right discussion to have, and how mission critical and how fast can I switch this component? Yeah.
But I mean, you mentioned all the companies you're dependent on, but like, is there an effort to get less dependent on hyperscalers on one end and the Chinese, companies you're working with on the other end?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, we are running in 120 countries. We are running the largest multinationals, and they are coming to us and say, hey, I need a local solution for China. I need a solution for Europe. I want to be protective against the US Cloud Act. So we actually are giving customers choice. We have here our own data centers. We are working together with a local infrastructure provider like T-Systems, but we also run on the hyperscaler. So customers have choice, and we give them the guarantee that we can also switch, that we stay agnostic. And the same is also true on the AI side. We are running certain AI use cases from SAP, obviously with our own AI foundational module, and then we build it on top of any LLM. But we can switch from OpenAI to Mistral within 2 weeks. And if the customer says, but Christian, I don't want to have Claude, don't want to have GPT, I want to have Mistral. Yeah, we deploy our digital co-worker, we deploy our agents also on Mistral. And I guess that choice is in these geopolitical times very important.
I mean, when we talk about digital sovereignty, we basically talk about strength of companies in Europe. Without an individual strength of the company, there will not be a political sovereignty in that sense. I mean, we just very recently in Davos had a conversation, and I was stunned by the fact that there was one company visible from Germany or from Europe even on the promenade, and that was actually SAP, which is great for you, but then on the other side, probably not good news for Europe, right?
Of course, I'm getting oftentimes the question, why is there not another SAP in Europe? And I guess there are certain reasons for that. I mean, first, just stay on the topic sovereignty, it explains a lot why sometimes it's so hard to build a business in Europe. While we are discussing, back and forth what sovereignty really means, I mean, in the United States, we come in as a European software vendor, but there are clear rules. There is a clear definition. We don't even talk about what sovereignty means. There is a FedRAMP certification. We have an own legal entity for the US Navy, for the US Army, and then we do business. And here you come to Germany, and the federal side has hopefully one definition. Then you go into the States, they have their own definition. The data protection officers have their own reading into it. And then how on earth can you scale a business? Yeah? And then you're ending up in religious decisions. And then when new tariffs are coming, it's getting even more religious. Yeah? But that is not the stability, the foundation, what you need to do business. And especially as a big tech, we can navigate this somehow, and we do a lot of business also elsewhere in the world. But think about our startups, and they need speed. And that is, of course, very, very hard to scale a business and gain speed, because the same idea for AI has probably also another startup in the US and China, so speed matters.
And it matters probably even more than just a few years ago. Everything seems to be developing in an enormous speed, whereas the institutions, I mean, let's say, work at the same speed as they ever have done. Is that a structural problem that we haven't found a solution for?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at SAP, we did our cloud transformation in the last 6 years, and we have 110,000 people, and we brought in 40,000 new people into the company. It was also a massive skill transformation. Now, the way how we coded software will be also now very different in the next years. There's probably no one anymore in SAP who will code software in a natural way like we did for 50 years. Now I have to talk to my workers' council and said, I would love to include these code generation tools. I need vibe coders. I need fast, very fast boot camps on the ground. I need to change the profiles, and probably not only in software development. I mean, this is where we have the biggest change right now. But think about our legal department, who is checking the contracts, hopefully an agent. I don't need, all of the traditional lawyers I have inside SAP. And now my US and Chinese competitors, they are moving. They're just deciding that and reskilling their workforce. And that takes time. Also, when you think about in 2 weeks, I have a full stack developer on board in the US. Here, when I hire a full stack developer, if I find someone, it takes me 6 months. And that is a world, I mean, in tech, who is moving so fast. That's why the labor reforms, the social market reforms, they are probably not only needed to make our economy more competitive, but it's also a matter of survival for many of the tech companies, or even other industries right now.
So, I mean, you mentioned the federal issues that you have. You mentioned the issues that you have on the labor level. We haven't even started to talk about the European level. That makes everything even more complicated. And then at the same time, a company like yours has to go through, potentially go through massive change in the next couple of years, because you absolutely need new profiles. I mean, I just imagine, how do you wake up in the morning and say, okay, how can I solve even one of the problems today?
Yeah, I mean, there you see where my gray hairs are coming from. I mean, look, it's also in Europe. When I look at SAP, and there's a lot of talk right now is software death, because with vibe coding, you can just rebuild everything what all of these SaaS players coded.
Which is what many people think.
Yeah. And I can still sleep at night, and I tell you why. Because we have also assets, and I come also why we also have assets, strong assets in Europe. I mean, when it comes to SAP, I mean, when you would tell now Claude or GPT, how can I collect cash faster as a company? They can read a contract very well. So the unstructured side, the LLMs are super strong and getting stronger every day. But what they don't have is, any business data, any financial data. Is there any escalation data in the system, which may be, why the customer is not paying, and so on. So you need always both. You need the LLMs, but at the end you also need an AI foundation for business data. And then when you have the cash collection agent also needs to talk to the sales agent, because hey, is there something going on what I don't know while the customer is not paying? Today human beings are doing that. In the future, these agents need to talk real time and solve this cash collection dispute. And that's why, and that is SAP. So we take the best LLMs, and then we put our business data and business process on top. We train that. If I wouldn't do that, SAP would have no future. But I have to transform, and we know how to do it. And now it's all about speed and execution. And when it comes to Europe, we oftentimes say, oh, we are dependent on the hyperscalers and so on. I mean, first of all, we have some European infrastructure. The second piece is the game which is not yet played is exactly that. How can we apply AI? How can we build the best agents for the chemical industry, for the retail industry, etc.? And this is where we have a lot of expertise in Europe, a lot of data, a lot of understanding how these businesses could run in the future. And this is where, when I would now do a startup, I would build a startup who is really focusing on applying AI in one of the verticals, in one of the key industries where Europe is very strong at, and then go. And so that's why, I mean, the situation is not hopeless, but we need to get our acts together.
let's put it in numbers. I mean, you have 110,000 employees at SAP. How many software developers?
45,000, yeah.
Well, so 45,000 software developers that are seeing AI as the ultimate competitor. How is that looking in the near future?
Yeah, look, change management is a big thing, yeah, and of course you need to give it a positive vibe, because otherwise everyone is saying hands off. I mean, my job is at risk. And what we are doing at SAP, indeed, we have programs all in on AI, where we bring the developers together and skill them up on Python, because this is how you build agents. We are telling them, hey, you coded features in the past. Let's learn how to build the best agents, the most intelligent agents for the different parts of our software. And of course, but we are telling them there is a job for you, but the job will look very much different. And now you find people who are just coming out of the university. Wow, I want to be part of that, because I feel I learned something, which also increases, my own attractiveness, also being it inside SAP or out there in the job market. And there are, of course, people who coded for 40 years in the same way, and there for them the change is harder. But it's not impossible to do the change. But it's really not only about applying a technology with AI. It's also about the change management and how you do it.
If we turn the whole thing around, would you say other regions, governments, are so dependent on SAP that they actually can't leave the table?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. And in all justice to SAP, I mean, I'm the CEO. Yes, of course. I mean, sometimes I read sometimes in the news, SAP, we are having a lock-in. I mean, because SAP is so highly mission critical. I mean, it's not bad to have highly mission critical software, because it also means it's high value. Now, in the past, obviously, a lot of customers, partners, and also SAP custom coded this thing and made it super complex. Now in the cloud, we said, take this complexity out. We want to make you agile. We want to reduce the lock-in, actually, because I believe we need to focus on innovation and not creating complexity. And now with the agents, obviously, the customers understand they are doing a lot of things with Anthropic. They're doing projects with OpenAI. Palantir is obviously also very active. But they always, this is the good thing, they're coming and said, you know what? When we do predictive asset management for my Navy with this AI, we need SAP somehow to understand how the business process works and how it will work together, and we need access to the data. And that's why we always partner up with these companies to do it together. And I believe that will be also the future. There is software, but the software will be built in a very different way and will work in a very different way, and businesses will work way more autonomous than they are doing it today.
Is it the same level of change and transformation that the German auto industry goes through?
I would say even bigger. I mean, I'm sometimes feeling a little bit lonely as a tech CEO in the German DAX. And I sometimes a little bit jealous about my auto colleagues, and I don't want to complain. I mean, they get a lot of attention. But I would claim, I mean, SAP has so many competitors in China and the US working, we're moving with such a speed to compete in a market where so much money is getting pulled in. It's not easy. And I'm not having a government who spends over $1 billion for IT. I would love to have such a government. But obviously it's a different size. And this is why, for me, it's very important to always, use also the global scale of SAP. I mean, we are hiring still, and this is good, the best PhDs from Stanford to build a knowledge graph, the glue between the LLMs and our AI foundation. We get great people in Bangalore and in India, so we use the global scale of SAP. If SAP would now be only built in Europe, I would probably not sleep so well at night, because I need global SAP. While I have, of course, here in Munich, we are building up a great lab for supply chain AI. We have a great startup community. I'm not saying we are not competitive here, but I need a global scale of SAP to compete.
Let's focus on perspectives. Even in politics, we find a few, maybe. We have the first Minister for Digitalization, Carsten Wildberger. He's a former CEO, too. One of the things he said, he's going to kick out fax machines whenever he finds one from the ministry. That's great. Probably not enough for you, right? Mm-hmm. But, do you feel there's progress on that end, or is it just a new ministry? Is it just new bureaucracy?
No. I have meetings with him, and not this typical 30 minutes, 3 hours, where we talk about a new digital platform for German citizens, where you have one ID and you have, everything in for healthcare, for, new child is born and you don't need to go anymore to the German Rathaus and whatsoever. So we are doing this and really forming a digital platform for German citizens. And I see how he is working. I mean, he is not, he's going deep and he's pushing certain roadblocks aside. And I'm now, in the meantime, pretty confident that we see progress. Progress we should have probably made 10 years ago, but whatever, let's look forward. So that was actually good. Still, I would love for Carsten Wilberger to have more empowerment. I mean, you still need to go to every state and ask for permission. Are you now joining this platform? Yes or no? I mean, what is wrong with having, one platform for digitize our tax system, etc.? But still, you need to go state by state, but it's moving. On the European level, I have to say it's still a little bit complex and things could go or should go much faster.
Another anonymous quote from that luncheon was that a CEO, German CEO, was in conversation with the EU administration, and basically at the end of this luncheon said, "It feels like whatever we say, you don't get it. You don't listen to our real issues." Do you share that view on the European bureaucracy?
That's a difficult, dangerous question. I mean, look, I give you an example. When I talked to the Trump advisor for technology, Michael Grazios, Michael built various startups in the Silicon Valley. He was an investor and so on. So he knows how to shape policies to favor US tech. He's also smart enough to not push out European technology because he knows how mission critical other pieces are. But he gives us a clear framework. But he also thinks about, okay, what is the next game to be played? Now, when I'm having this conversation in Washington, and then I want to have that conversation in Europe, it's getting a little bit tricky. Yeah? So I guess we need also in the administration people who have built companies, who have built startups, who have worked with tech, who understand to not first just regulate technology. You can still regulate an outcome, but let us first create outcomes and then you can regulate. But for that, you need somehow practical experience. But I would say the whole political system, sometimes like Carsten Wilberger is a good example, I find these moves actually really helpful because when I talk to him, we are talking the same language and still he is of course acting in favor of, in the interest of the German government. And I guess that is a big difference when I sometimes compare my conversations in Washington versus the ones I have in Europe or elsewhere sometimes in the world.
I mean, the broader question of regulation obviously is also what kind of regulation would we need? I mean, it's obviously so much development on so many ends, on different tracks, if you will. I mean, some sort of regulation would probably, even from your perspective, helpful, right?
Yeah. But see what is happening in Europe. I mean, I would even say, okay, let's do a Data and AI Act on the European level, but then let's get rid of the local regulation. I mean, we are just building new layers on top of, the layers of regulation we already have in the countries and the states. And that makes things unbelievably complex. I mean, in some AI deals we are doing in Europe, we have more lawyers at the table than IT and business people because everyone needs to figure out, okay, what is the French regulation? What is the European regulation? What is the German regulation? And then you have to also, in my eyes, you should regulate in a way that, okay, I have a piece of AI and I build this into the supply chain, or I build this piece into our HR recruiting system. I mean, then you can regulate, okay, how autonomous can the agent be? Should the agent really be, at the end, also the decision maker about who is getting hired? No, you can tell a tech company. At the end, there's always a human being who still makes decisions. I mean, that kind of regulation is the right one, but not regulate the technology per se. Because when you regulate the technology, I mean, how can you compete against the Chinese and the US who don't have this type of regulation?
You just mentioned, I believe, the opening of the Defense Innovation Hub. How much of a defense company is SAP going to be?
I mean, when you think about the US Navy or think about Rheinmetall or think about Helsing, I mean, we are always going, we are orchestrating oftentimes the supply chain. Then when it goes to the edges, I mean, about, how to build drones, etc., that is not SAP. But we are, of course, innovating now a lot with these defense companies, especially when it comes to predictive maintenance, better supply chain resiliency in times of these geopolitical trade sanctions. How can we build resilient supply chains for these defense companies? They also need to get way smarter in material traceability, etc. I mean, this is what SAP does with these defense companies. And the hub here in Munich will be, I mean, we are inviting them. There will be academia, there will be these defense companies, there will be SAP. And we will build with AI the next generation defense companies.
So there's the chancellor's in the house too, as you know, and I want to give you the opportunity to make a wish. In case he comes in the hub, I will directly communicate it to him. Yeah. If you have one really immediate wish to the German chancellor, what should he do?
Make the digital platform happen for Germany to gain speed and reduce bureaucracy.
Wonderful. Christian Klein, thank you so much
Thanks a lot.
For the conversation.